61, and they made not 7, not 8, but 9 selections in this draft. Tune in to find out who they were and how they are.
Let's go get him. Let's go get him today, man. Let's go. Hey, dominate on 3. 1, 2, 3. Dominate.
Welcome back to another episode of the 49ers Red Zone. This is your boy Marco with my co-host Rohan. How's it going, Rohan?
Doing good. Busy week with the draft, and now we get to see what happens out after it. How are you, man?
I'm doing great. Can't complain. Just got back from the Soul Bloom Festival earlier today. That was pretty fun. But going into the draft, right? 49ers select 9 picks. Everyone thought they weren't going to select that many times in this draft. They end up doing so. The surprising thing is a lot of people were like, oh, they could potentially go these players, whatever the case may be. But with their first selection in the 2022 NFL draft, the 49ers selected Trey Lance. That's pretty much how it actually should be. They traded away a couple picks in the first round, picked in the first round last year, this year's first rounder, and next year's first rounder to the Miami Dolphins for Trey Lance. So first of all, let's speak on Trey Lance. No, I'm just kidding. Everyone knows about Trey Lance. So pick 61. Talk to me about Drake Jackson.
Drake Jackson's a very interesting player. I think Drake Jackson was a great pick at 61 in terms of value. And I think I was excited not only for the player, but because the 49ers are changing their philosophy. 49ers normally have been known to go need over best player available in the early rounds, especially. And I think this kind of shifted that notion. A lot of people thought interior offensive line was going to be the pick. I thought after Cam Jurgens went off the board, I didn't think the value was there at 61 for interior offensive linemen, specifically center. A lot of people like safety as well. But the 49ers instead get a player that some people mocked in the first round at 61 in Drake Jackson, a guy who was misused at USC, played a bit of linebacker. You know, he's obviously a better edge rusher. His best year was his freshman year because that was the year where he was most consistent as a pass rusher, and he also had the best usage there. I think that it's a good pick, and I mean that's the guy you want opposite of Nick Bosa for years to come. I like the selection, and I'm wondering what does this mean for the defensive line? We've got a ton of bodies there, and I'm wondering who stays on the roster and who doesn't.
So that's a great point, right? Who stays on the roster, who doesn't. But talking about Drake Jackson, the 49ers finally got themselves a legit edge rusher opposite of Nick Bosa, right? They have someone who, when he is at his best, he is a solid first-round pick, right? So a lot of people had him projected first round. He ends up dropping to 61, which might be because his weight fluctuated, right? At 270 his freshman year, he had his best season. And the way it went for Drake Jackson was if it wasn't for his weight fluctuating, he would probably have gone in the first round. Speed. And when he realizes his potential with Chris Kaserik, the 49ers are going to have a very, very solid edge rusher opposite Nick Bosa. Now, what I see from Drake Jackson is a guy who has one of the best shoulder dips, and speed off the edge in this class. Now, the reason why he went in 61 is because he's not as refined as a lot of these other guys, right? His upside isn't as high because of he would take plays off. He would, at times, he wouldn't, how do I say it? Like, use his max potential of who he is skill-wise to the best of his ability. So for the 49ers to get him at pick 61, that is a steal. A lot of people, like I said, like you said earlier, a lot of people had him in the first round. I had a 35 to 45 grade on him. That's where I thought he was going to go. I didn't think he was going to go any lower than 45 because of the edge class being so deep. I thought someone was going to pounce on him earlier than letting him slide because, yes, the edge class was top heavy, right? We've seen so many edge rushers go in the first round. But realistically, George Karlaftis, who went 30 to the Kansas City Chiefs, is not better than Drake Jackson, in my opinion. I think George Karlaftis.
Yeah, I didn't like him as much.
He's a mid-second, early third round pick. That's who I saw for George Karlaftis. and the 49ers got someone who was better than him at 61. So if we look at that, where I had seen Drake Jackson going was from 30 at the Chiefs, and if he fell out of the first round, then I thought it was it's gonna be 45 was the last place he'll go. So for us to get Drake Jackson at 61, that's a hell of a pick for the 49ers. So now, do you think this means the 49ers are gonna go cut one of their players, a guy like I never thought Kerry Hyder was gonna make the team. I thought he was a practice
Yeah.
squad guy. A lot of people think he'll make the team. Jordan Willis, a guy who provides special teams ability. He provides a little bit of juice on the edge. Um, they also have Samson Ebukam, who they could cut because they save about 6 million. Am I correct, or is it more?
Yeah, 6.25 million.
So they can save 6 million to Ebukam, who that's another guy. Who they also have Charles Omenihu, who I think will make the roster because of his ability to
Yeah.
play inside and outside.
Yeah.
Who out of the group do you see just a real quick not making the roster due to this pick?
Yeah, I think there are two players that are kind of in competition to not make the roster. Obviously, one of them, like you said, is Kerry Hyder, 30 years old. 49ers are trying to go young this offseason. It's pretty evident. And he's not the best. Like, he is arguably the worst player out of that group that you just mentioned and has the least potential out of the group you just mentioned. The other guy, like you said, the guy that we can save 6.25 million from, Samson Ebukam. I tweeted out on March 9th. I know I got a lot of flame for it, that the 49ers can save 6.25 million if they move on from Samson Ebukam. And when I tweeted that, I didn't necessarily mean they should cut him. I thought that it was unfeasible in a way if they were trying to build the best roster for him to be on the team at that cap hit in 2022. And this move kind of solidifies it because, in a way, right now, before maybe you didn't necessarily have the edge depth back on March 9th. But guess what? You added Kimoko Ture, who's a fairly solid edge rusher, and now you have Drake Jackson as well. So I don't think it's feasible to have Samson Ebukam on that 6.25 million. Now, could you extend him, lower that cap hit, and maybe keep him on the year for his prime because he's only entering his age 26 season? Definitely. But I don't think that 6.25 million is a salary they should keep him on for 2022.
What's up, Jesse? So if you guys don't subscribe to Last Second Sports, make sure you guys do so. I was on there day 1 and day 2, talking the NFL draft, catching up with Jesse. There's a bunch of good guys on that episode, so make sure you guys go back and you guys watch a live stream of Last Second Sports. Make sure you subscribe to them. That's my boy Jesse. Shout out to my boy Jesse. So
Yeah.
yeah, you're absolutely right. I do think the 49ers could definitely cut a guy like Samson Ebukam because of the 6.25 cap savings they have, and that's about the price range that will probably take to pay all of their rookies, like all the class and everything. They have to make some roster adjustments because they are going to need cap space. I believe after they sign all their undrafted free agents, all their draft class,
Right.
in order to do so, they're over the cap, I believe.
So yeah, I think how it is right now, I think one thing people realize is it's top 51, right? So not all of those guys will adjust, but you're right. The 49ers are in need of cap space. If they sign their rookies, they're at 274,000. That's not feasible going into the offseason when you likely are going to have to make a little more adjustments. The 49ers themselves said that if there's a player they like, they're not going to sit back and wait. They're going to pounce at least as early as possible rather than waiting till training camp. So we'll see. Yeah, definitely how they try and maneuver and make some money up.
So with the second pick in the 49ers 2022 draft selection, 93rd overall, the 49ers select running back Tyrion Davis Price out of LSU. What was your initial reaction? Because I know you probably have a different thought process from it now. What was your initial reaction when because you were there, right, at the
Yeah.
draft party? What was your initial reaction, and what was the fans' reaction at that draft party like?
So my initial reaction was Nick Cross is on the board, Kirby Joseph's on the board if you don't like Nick Cross. And what I meant by that is 49ers need a safety. I've been fairly critical of them and their secondary, specifically safety, because I don't think there's a starting option currently at the moment. And so I was like running back at 93. I don't think the value is necessarily as good. As for the fan base, it was a little bit of a silent mode before they started cheering, to be honest, for Tyrion Davis Price, because they were also a bit confused. Like there were a couple of cheers immediately, obviously, because it's the 49ers picking. You waited 31 picks and it's near the end of the day. But it was a bit of silence at first because also people were confused that it was a running back, especially. And then you asked for my thoughts afterwards. Love the player, just not the pick. I think Tyrion Davis Price is actually a much better player than scouts indicated early on. I think he plays with a level of explosiveness that is necessary in this backfield. And to me, this screams that the 49ers are trying to help Deebo Samuel. Deebo Samuel was that explosive runner last year. And then I know we're going to talk about him in a minute.
I'm gonna have to stop you
Go
there
ahead.
though, Rohan, because I don't. They're not trying to help Debo Samuel, right? Everyone's in this perspective like, oh, the running back pick is so they're not necessarily take the workload off of Debo.
Okay.
No, it's actually
Yeah.
it's to help Elijah Mitchell, right? At the end of the day, Debo's if the 49ers can't use Debo Samuel in as a running back, you're running the ball every once in a while, then what is the point of paying Debo Samuel all this money? Because last
Yeah.
year everyone was going crazy and bananas that Debo Samuel was this elite weapon, and an elite weapon allows Debo to run the ball every once in a while. So I think it's more so taking off the workload from Elijah Mitchell, who year one had a knee problem, ends up getting his knee scoped out this offseason. So I think it's more so about Elijah Mitchell and Trey Sermon than anything and helping those two young players than anything with Debo Samuel. I don't think it has anything to do with Debo Samuel's workload, but I do agree with you. So keep going on that. I just wanted to put that out there because
Yeah.
a lot of people keep saying that, and it's like it's very confusing because
Yeah.
Debo Samuel, if he's used as a running back, is because that's to his best ability. He does elite stuff as a running back when he has the ball in his hand. So if we can't use Debo in that way, what is the point of paying him that 25 million per year or higher? Because Debo is an elite player, and the 49ers should use him as so. So go ahead, keep going. Sorry for interrupting you.
No problem. And I'll reword because I don't mean like in a way because of Debo Samuel. What I meant is it's insurance in a way because the 49ers are diversifying their running back room. Elijah Mitchell was a guy primarily used in an outside zone scheme last year. Outside, like obviously you pull the tackle and you try and run behind Trent Williams. That's where he got a majority of his yards last year when you saw the running back charts. I think Tyrion Davis Price instead has the ability to do something that Deebo Samuel did last year, mainly for the 49ers. And what I meant by that is he's got the ability to run inside the tackles with that explosiveness and with a much better offensive line. LSU's offensive line is horrendous. It's terrible. But with a much better offensive line in San Francisco, I think he's got the ability to sustain the yards per carry that he had in college, around 4.5 yards per carry, and potentially even eclipse that. He's not a home run speed guy. I don't think he'll break off for 70-yard, 50-yard plays and stuff, but he's a guy that can help you move the chains and be a little more reliable on the early downs. Like you said, it's definitely a good thing that you said that because yes, it is to complement Elijah Mitchell, and he might even be running back number one on the depth chart following the end of the year, just because Elijah Mitchell and him kind of have a little bit of a different skill set despite having similar bodies. And it's important because the 49ers, the reason they started using Deebo Samuel at running back last year is because they had a lack of running backs. I know someone said capable running backs. No, it's a lack of healthy bodies at the running back position. And I think that that's important, right? The 49ers, obviously a team that runs the ball a lot. Last year, they resorted to essentially their fifth running back on the roster in Deebo Samuel because the top four were injured. Elijah Mitchell hurt his finger and he had a knee issue. Obviously, he's going to require some time to come back, be healthy by training camp. But Tyrion Davis Price, a durable body that enters the running back room. As I said, love the player, just not necessarily the pick in terms of value at 93.
So my initial reaction, it was funny because we're live with Jesse, who Jesse just said he watched film on him, right? So I want Jesse to eventually, hopefully, he could put in the comments what his thought process on the film he watched was, so we could show. So my initial reaction was, why the hell did we pass up on a safety? We had Nick Cross, who was is probably the best player available at the time. Like you said, Kirby Joseph was still there. There were still other players on the board. It was very confusing. And you initially text me and you said, "Hey, thoughts on the draft?" I said, "Confusing," right?
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
confused why we passed up on a safety in order to select a running back, especially a running back. And let me explain why I was confused. A running back who was projected to go in the fifth or sixth round by
Mhm.
most NFL analysts, some NFL analysts and some quote unquote experts had him as in their top 5 at running back. Tell you the truth, I didn't watch his film pre-draft process. I watched film on a lot of running backs. So I thought we were gonna select the running back in this draft class. I did not watch his film. As soon as the pick was made, while we're on air, I started watching his film. And I started thinking to myself, like, okay, think like Kyle and John. Like, why are they making this selection? Think like Kyle
Right.
and John. And this is me going into a zone where I'm acting like a general manager. I'm acting like John Lynch, right? I have a young rookie quarterback who I know I need to run the ball with. I just lost Raheem Mostert, who was arguably the best running back on my roster and was probably the best fit for my system. So I need to run the ball heavily with my young rookie quarterback, or essentially he's going to be a rookie. The amount of reps he has, right? So for me, I have to run the ball early and often. And a guy who's a bruiser, who is very explosive and very hard to bring down, takes off the workload from guys like Elijah Mitchell and Trey Sermon. And this has nothing to do with Trey Sermon. If we're very high on this running back and he fits our system, he does what we like well. This is a perfect opportunity to take another running back and have a running back by committee and have a heavy, heavy dose of run, 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 and use play action off of that, which Trey Lance actually does best, right? That's where Trey Lance is feasting when
Right.
he's in play action and he's picking defenses apart when he has his back turned towards the defense. He picks you apart, which is very crazy for a quarterback coming out of college nowadays. So I initially started watching him, and when I started watching him, I watched a few games of him. I watched Alabama game.
Same.
Started watching that game. I started watching a Kentucky game, and the other game I believe was Florida that I have. So I started watching, and I initially turned on the Florida and the Kentucky game, and I was like, okay, let's see what this kid is. I saw an AJ Dillon with more explosiveness, and at times you see glimpses of Nick Chubb. It's the same system that Kyle has, right? The system that Nick Chubb ran. I'm not saying he is Nick Chubb, but I'm saying when you see a guy who Nick Chubb is a very, very powerful back with explosiveness and has breakaway speed. Now, Davis doesn't have that breakaway speed. He has a quick
Right.
burst. It's one of those things where I was like, okay, if he could get in this wide zone and the inside zone, if he could get to that next level, if he could be a hard guy to bring down, we're going to see him go for a lot of yards going with Elijah Mitchell, Trey Sermon. So we're going to have that running back by committee where if someone goes down, he can step in right away. Now, where
Mhm.
I was very weary on was, why in the hell are we taking a running back when that's not even the main position of need? We had center, we have guard, we have safety that were still there on the board. It's like, what are we what are we doing
Yeah.
here? Like, it
Yeah.
did not make sense. And for me to sit there and say that was a great pick, no, that was a terrible pick in terms of value. I
Yeah.
value where I draft. I absolutely value where I draft, right? As someone who you go in, you're trying to like if you look at the Chiefs, you look at the Ravens, they all value their draft picks on where they're drafted. They just take best player available. What are people saying? Those two teams had the best draft classes in the 2022 NFL draft. Why? Because they value where they're selecting, and the 49ers didn't do so with this pick and a few other picks we're gonna talk about later. So that's where I was confused. The player, solid. The pick, terrible for what we were drafting, 93rd overall. So Jesse
Definitely.
says, I watched versus Alabama. He's cool, but he didn't make me excited by any mean. Decent blocker, not at all a pass catcher. Ball security issues, tough to bring down, quick first step, decisive yet patient. So and this system is important, right? Being hard to
Mhm.
bring down, that quick first step, and decisive yet patient. And that's where I saw glimpses of Nick Chubb, the decisiveness, but as soon as he hits that hole, it's very quick and explosive. So that's something to be excited about for me. But picking him definitely at pick 93 was a big question mark, a big head scratcher. But then the 49ers turn around, right? And they select a player that you were very, very high on pre-draft process, right?
Yeah.
Recorded probably, was it our
It
first
was in probably
February,
February,
early
probably
February,
February
right?
week. Yeah.
And you selected Danny Gray. So for those who there's a our selects Danny Gray in like the 6th round or 7th round, where
Mhm.
PFN had him ranked, right? They had him ranked in the 6th round, but Rohan said he straight up said before he made this pick, he goes, Danny Gray is a player I would feel comfortable taking in the 3rd round, but I could see him going in the 4th. Well, guess what, Rohan? They take him at 105 overall. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, and real quick before we get on Danny Gray, I wanted to ask you something about the price pick. I've been going back and forth on this, and I'm not exactly sure. But do you think, in a way, it was an Anthony Lynn style pick? Because the 49ers, or I mean, not 49ers, Anthony Lynn in his past, who's he had? He's had Melvin Gordon in Los Angeles, didn't move on from him. Instead, they moved on from him after Anthony Lynn was fired. And then he had DeAndre Swift last year, who, while he's a speed back, has that 215-pound frame. And so I'm thinking a little bit to try and justify that, or not justify, but make sense of why they'd select Tyrene Davis Price, because he's more of a power back in a way. He goes between the tackles, like you said, decisive yet patient, and then explosive. It's a little bit of a different type of back. I wonder what are your thoughts on that? Do you think that it's because you think he'd fit Anthony Lynn's scheme a little more?
So I actually don't. So I actually do think he fits Kyle's scheme, but I
Got
think last year, if we pay attention to what the 49ers did last year, they went a little bit more inside zone than they did outside zone. And
it. Mhm.
with outside zone running scheme, you're getting banged up a lot. Like you're getting hit hard. You're it's not a running back friendly offense, yet you show production. It's not running back friendly in terms of the pounding you're taking. So Kyle Shanahan did go a little bit more inside zone last year. And for me, I thought it was smart for Kyle Shanahan's offense, not for the Anthony Lynn offense or version we'll see in the running game. The
Mhm.
way I see it is Anthony Lynn will probably get hired by another coaching staff to be their offensive coordinator within the next year or two. He might even get a head coaching job in the next year or two because of Kyle Shanahan. Kyle Shanahan produces these coaches as offensive coordinators, head coaches, defensive coordinators to head coaches really fast. So I wouldn't draft in terms of accommodating for Anthony Lynn because Kyle Shanahan isn't going anywhere anytime soon. You draft players for Kyle's system, and if anything, you work around what Anthony Lynn does best. I don't think it was a Anthony Lynn selection.
Mhm. Got it. Got it. Got it. But yeah, moving on to Danny Gray
Appreciate
then.
you, Jamal.
Ooh, my guy, Jamal. Thank you, man. But moving on to Danny Gray, right? Danny Gray is a very interesting player. Obviously from SMU. When you think about Danny Gray, you don't necessarily see just looking at numbers. You don't necessarily see the production you might want to have. But when you look on the tape, you realize why. SMU quarterback cannot make the throws that Danny Gray really excels at. Danny Gray is not a great guy in the short and intermediate routes. That's not why the 49ers drafted him, though. I think he's a solid guy in the deep. Obviously, his main trait is speed. John Lynch said it. Kyle Shanahan said it during their post-game press conference. 4.33 speed, in my opinion, he's even faster than that. And he's got that speed. To me, he's 6 foot 186, but looks bigger. I think he plays a little bigger. And so for me, what he has to improve on is his route running. I think he got to be little less reliant on that speed at times instead of running in a straight line. Got to be a little more elusive with his route running. Having a more expanded route tree is what I'm trying to say. Because when he's running his routes, it feels like he sometimes runs a little slower to try and accommodate for that route, which allows cornerbacks in a way to stick with him at times. At least the one game that I watched him extensively was against Houston. I thought he had some good plays. Marcus Jones was the cornerback, and I was mainly watching for Marcus Jones to evaluate him. And I was impressed by Jones. I thought Jones kept up pretty well, despite being a 5'8 cornerback at 175. I really liked him in that game. But Danny Gray, the one trait that kind of blew him away in that game was also that speed. I thought that when he's running in that deep burner kind of route, and I think that that's really important for us because that's the one thing we lack. I know we have Debo Samuel, whose acceleration is second to none. Brandon Ayuk, whose speed is underrated because he is able to include it in his route running game as well. But I do think that Danny Gray possesses that straight burner speed, which is going to be really helpful with Trey Lance because Trey Lance, what is his biggest thing right now? I think he's most comfortable throwing the ball down the field. He did that a lot at NDSU. That's why Christian Watson had a catch average of 18.4 yards per game per catch when Christian Watson was at NDSU, and he was a top target by far. I think that that's something that Trey Lance really needs to get incorporated into his game early, and Danny Gray provides you the ability to do that. I like this pick at 105 because I thought, yeah, it went best fit, best player available again, which I'm happy that the 49ers did here.
So this pick was a pick that it definitely put a smile on my face because the last pick in the third round, right? The last pick at the end of the night, 49ers select Danny Gray. And what we've lacked in this offense for some time has been speed, right? The last
Right.
blazer we've had, it was Marquise Goodwin. And when we see what Marquise Goodwin did with Kyle Shanahan, wasn't the greatest route runner, wasn't the best receiver on any roster that he's ever been on. But Kyle Shanahan used that speed to his ability and almost created a 1,000-yard receiver with Marquise Goodwin, letting the ball go deep, getting him open on crossing routes, just getting that speed and its speed element in the game. And Danny Gray, the thing with Danny Gray, and something you were talking about, right? His route running. So as a receiver, you have to use your speed to your advantage, right? You have to step on the DB's toes to get him turn up field and get going, right? And Danny
Mhm.
Gray, a lot of times, when I would watch his tape, was he wouldn't use his speed to threaten vertical. He
Right,
would
right.
mostly be jogging, and then he would beat the drums. And when I say beat the drums, as receivers, they use their hands to da 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 to break, right? And when you do
Mhm.
that, for me as a DB, I'm able to see that you're beating the drum or milking the cow, whatever analogy you want to call it, right? You're able to see when he's breaking. So there was times where he would threaten vertical, he has the DB running, and he's coming back. Or he's cutting in, and that's what Danny Gray needs to work on. And I think the
Yeah.
49ers with their route running um, ability of a guy like Brandon Ayuk, Debo Samuel, he has learned how to threaten vertical with the 49ers a lot better than he had coming out of college. So I think with the 49ers coaching staff, Kyle as an X receiver, teaching Danny Gray to threaten vertical and learn how to use your speed to get these corners to start turning and going. But I think the best ability for Kyle Shanahan, and I know Kyle Shanahan saw this and said, I need him in my offense, is the yards after catch.
Yeah,
Danny Gray with the ball in his
exactly.
hands. Holy Toledo. This dude can turn a 5-yard pass into a 95-yard touchdown because of his speed. And I don't mean speed. This is elite speed. He is outrunning DB's angles like nothing. And for me, I personally think Kyle Shanahan saw it and said, okay, well, this is exactly how I'm going to use you. I'm going to use you on crossing routes, get you open. The first year, as you're working on your route running abilities, I'm going to get you open. I'm going to throw you deep. That's what you're going to do. You're going to run clear routes. You're going to run crossing routes, and we'll let you work on your route running and bring you on par. But this weapon in Kyle's offense with Trey Lance is going to be very, very good. And I know there's a couple questions there. So let's get to those questions real quick, Rohan. So
Yeah, go for it.
from Jay Aguayo, 56. I thought we had a solid B plus draft grade. Do you think part of the reason drafting Price and Gray
Ooh.
was to use them to alleviate workload on Debo? So I know you and I just touched on drafting Price. We didn't think that. Well, both of us didn't. We don't think that is to alleviate the workload on Debo, but we more so thought it was to help the entire offense, like guys like Elijah Mitchell, and get a stronger run game because we just lost a guy like Raheem Mostert that they probably thought that was a smart decision. Now, to alleviate the workload on Debo, I don't think so. I think it's more so a player that if this, for example, if Debo's really set on not wanting to be here, I think this is a very good uh, person to put in because the route running ability is there at times when he threatens vertical is very useful. Getting him open on crossing routes, the stuff Debo did, right? Crossing route, quick slants, those end arounds. Danny Gray does all that, but at a faster
Right.
speed, right? At an elite speed. Now he isn't Debo in terms of I'm going to catch the ball, break through tackles. No, he's running around you. He's not getting touched with a different style of Debo yards after the catch. So I think that is something to do with Debo possibly if Debo does leave. What do you think on that?
I think it's honestly a pretty good thing, and that's what I was kind of thinking of as well, right? Because we have the complement of Davis Price and Danny Gray, a running back and a wide receiver. First thought obviously was to Trey, helping Trey Lance, which I liked, but also Yeah, he does a couple of those things, and I think one thing that Danny Gray can really, really like a lot of people question his hands. I think Kyle Shanahan has the best way to instill his confidence and improve those hands, and that's by including him, like you said, on these short routes. Have him work after the catch because you have easy catches, easy ways to make catches, and then after that, you can just use your skill set, which is working after the catch, in using that speed that the 49ers drafted you for. I definitely think that that's valuable. And obviously, the 49ers should be very excited because they've seen Debo Samuel do like exactly. We just saw that, right? The 83-yard touchdown pass that saved our season in Chicago. We've seen things like that. And I think the 49ers are excited because if Debo's usage is really a concern, you can use a guy like Danny Gray in a similar role because you've seen him get the same result. And so for me, yeah, Danny Gray, he does require a little more seasoning in the NFL, but I don't necessarily think it's because he doesn't have the ability to. It's just how he was used. He's used his clear out routes. And I wanted to put one point to you, Marco, about the clear out routes. Last year, the game that both of us got to attend in person, we saw one guy, Debo Samuel, run a clear out route. And guess what? Trey Lance said, nah, screw the offense. We're throwing it to the open guy 35 yards down the field for a touchdown. And that is something that I'm excited if Danny Gray gets in that role to do because he ran a lot of clear out routes at SMU. And I think, Trey Lance has the ability to change the offense where a clear out route isn't necessarily just a clear out route. It's a real route and a real threat in the offense. What do you think about that?
Oh no, absolutely. Trey Lance is the exact version, like that play that he threw to Debo is the exact version that I tell my basketball my high school basketball team, right? If I call a
Mhm.
play, screw the play and score. Like if you're able to get a layup out of like a set play, a wide open layup instead of getting my open three that I drew up or I called, screw the play and score. And that's literally
Right.
what Trey Lance is capable of doing is saying, screw the play and score. And that's exactly what we did with Debo because when you look at when Kyle Shanahan has always called that play, Jimmy Garoppolo never went to that route. Like that route is never really thrown. Like that is too hard of a route to actually throw. So I thought that the ability for Trey Lance to do that, the arm strength, the IQ to do something like that, we're definitely going to see Danny Gray being a third option in that passing attack. But yet Trey Lance is going there because it's open. So I think that you're definitely right. That's something that could definitely happen with Trey Lance and Danny Gray. So the 49ers next selection might have made everyone happy. Everyone was pounding, we need O line, we need O line, we need O line. They wanted to go O line at 93. Some people wanted to see Nick Cross at 93. Some people wanted to see Nick Cross at 104. No, at 93. He ended up going right after. So,
Right.
what do you think of the offensive line they took in Spencer Burford out of UTSA?
I'll be honest, I'm a little questionable at first. When I saw the pick, I was like, I thought you could have got him maybe a round later. And I think the upside, I went back and I watched, and I think the upside is certainly there with Spencer Burford. I think that if he grows a little more into his frame and is able to play a little stronger, he has the ability to sustain a tackle, and the 49ers might need a tackle going into 2023 if they don't plan to bring back Mike McGlinchey. And I think that this is another pick where we saw last year a lot of the picks were directed towards 2022. I thought this pick was similar in that it's directed not necessarily for the immediate future, but for 2023. And with fourth round picks, you don't expect them to always be contributors off the dot. But Burford, I think the 49ers, he's a 49ers type of player, right? He's got he does display strength at times on his tape. You've seen him throw people around like a very good 49ers lineman has done in Trent Williams. And I'm not comparing the two by any means, but Spencer Burford, he can move in space. I think that's important, obviously, in a 49ers scheme when the 49ers like to run the ball and obviously have agile offensive linemen. I think that it's a solid pick, but he still has refinement to do in pass protection, similar to our right tackle currently in Mike McGlinchey. And so I do think that it is a development pick. It's an interesting one because the 49ers obviously address offensive line like many people were clamoring for. It's just not necessarily the player that people were thinking in that situation because it's an offensive guard slash tackle. Likely, he might stick at tackle and might take over that Daniel Brunskill role in a way that he's played over the past couple of years, or he's a versatile guard tackle combo. How about you?
So with Spencer Burford, I actually like the pick. So as soon as
Mm,
the pick was made, I had known the name because of the Senior Bowl. I had known the
mhm.
name because our boy Jordan Elliott, right? So when Jordan Elliott was actually at the NFL Combine, we were talking about players that he should go to the interview table and see who are there. And he said he was watching Spencer Burford. He was about to talk to Spencer Burford, and he said this dude is a massive dude. And I was like, hey, that guy he was solid at the Senior Bowl, so that's something that he's a good player, but not at tackle. He's definitely an interior offensive guard, a right guard, left guard, wherever they put him. That's where he's best suited. Right away, I text one of my scout buddies that I talked to. I said, "Hey, thoughts on Spencer Burford?" Because I don't really, I'm not going to sit here and say, "Hey, I know offensive line. I understand
Right.
the basics and how it works and everything," but I'm going to definitely go to someone else right away for offensive line work. That's not my specialty, and I'm not
Yeah,
going to sit
same.
here and say that's my specialty. I understand what they have to do, their assignments, where they're supposed to place their hands, but as soon as a second move is made by a defensive lineman, I don't know how they're supposed to readjust. I really don't. I don't know how their feet are supposed to work. I just know they gotta have fast feet. They gotta be athletic. They gotta have quick hands, strike strong, right? Like the pretty much the
Right.
basics, right? So he says Spencer Burford at that pick at 134 is a very, very valuable pick. He said, I
Perfect.
thought
Okay.
Spencer Burford could have went in the top 100. So I said, oh, wow. I said, talk to me more. He said, when Spencer Burford is on the move in this kind of scheme, in the wide zone, that scheme that the Niners like to run, he is definitely a starting guard in that scheme. Now, he said what he needs to work on is his pass pro ability. He goes, but at right guard, it's going to be much easier than at tackle. He goes, but at tackle, you're playing against these dudes who they're so athletic, they're so gifted, but once you move inside, it's a lot easier to play that interior offensive line and be able to anchor down and get your hands and everything going. It's something that I thought was very interesting. So he only allowed only one hit on the quarterback and 420 pass snaps last year, right? So that's
That's
something that
solid.
49ers should definitely be in play at right guard, right? So
Right.
everyone's penciling in left guard Aaron Banks. Everyone's saying, "Damn, who's right guard? Who's at center?" I would not be shocked if Spencer Burford starts at right guard. Absolutely not.
Mhm.
I think Jalen Moore and him will battle it out. I think Jalen Moore is more capable of being a right guard, but I think Jalen Moore is probably going to be that swing tackle. He had the ability to do it last year, and I think he's better suited for Kyle's system at tackle, even though he is the athletic prototypical guard that Kyle likes. I just think he's too valuable at swing tackle for the 49ers right now. And Spencer Burford, in my opinion, is a straight guard in the NFL. I don't not see him playing tackle. So that's something that is interesting. I do like the pick because 49ers need to beef up that offensive line. Just let 20 dudes go battle out for the offense starting five. We know Trent Williams will be there. We know Mike McGlinchey will be there. We don't know the other three because center is a
Right.
question mark. So let them all go.
Definitely. Definitely, definitely. You embrace competition. The 49ers have they've been pretty vocal that they like it. And to your point, I think I forget who it was, but I was watching the press conferences and it was either Burford or the 49ers. One of the two said that he likely slots in at guard in the NFL. So it is a good point, especially given his size, his movement. And yeah, he does play a little bigger than his size. So it'll be interesting to see how the transition is. And like you said, Jalen Moore could be he's probably the favorite to start at right guard. But Jalen Moore and Spencer Burford are both guys that are now going to try and experience new position changes. So if they both compete at right guard, that is. So it will be an interesting battle for sure.
Well, I know Spencer Burford. He worked at guard at the Senior Bowl, so he has
Right.
the experience, but not a lot. Like it's not like he was a sure tackle in college, but Jalen Moore has to step up because he knows the system. He actually worked at guard last year a little bit, so the 49ers didn't say it like straight. Yeah, he was at guard during training camp and stuff, but during the season they had him playing guard every once in a while because if you look at when the swing tackle, Colton McKivitz started at left tackle instead of Jalen Moore. Kyle Shanahan ended up saying, yeah, Colton McKivitz had a good week of practice. And we also have the continuity of Jalen Moore has actually been practicing at other offensive line positions. So he hasn't really practiced at left tackle like Colton McKivitz has during practice. So that was a very interesting thing when I took from Kyle. Like, oh, so you are having Jalen Moore get reps at guard, but not telling anyone. That's smart.
Mhm. Right.
So
Yeah.
the next pick, the 49ers select a corner, but they haven't selected a corner yet in this draft class. Everyone kept saying they need a corner, they need a corner. This corner is a nickel corner only. He cannot play outside, in my opinion. Talk to me about Samuel Womack and how big of a reach that was for the 49ers taking.
Surprise. It was a surprise off the top. Like, surprisingly enough, I don't know how I stumbled on him pre-draft, but I actually knew of the name pre-draft, but I didn't know if he was going to get drafted. First of all, the 49ers reach here, take him at 172. And I mean, it's nothing against the player. I think Samuel Womack actually has the potential to be a solid slot corner in the NFL. Great speed, 4.39. He's a sub 4.4 guy. He's around 5'10, 190. That's bigger than our previous slot corner in K1 Williams, who was 5'8, 175. I'm interested to see if Samuel Womack will actually earn the starting job because he's a good corner, good coverage skills in a way. He obviously had some of the most pass breakups in the FBS last year, 17 pass breakups, led the FBS, which is something that the 49ers really haven't had in a way in terms of a guy with ball skills. And I think Womack possesses that. 2 interceptions as well last year at Toledo, and he had inside outside flexibility. He played a good amount on the outside. Obviously, one of the better corners at Toledo, a smaller university, but he projects, like you said, as a slot corner in the NFL with that size, but good speed. I'm interested though. The reason I'm interested to see how training camp goes is can Samuel Womack, not Spencer Burford, Samuel Womack, can he compete enough as a tackler to earn that starting job? Because the 49ers really value tackling out of their slot cornerbacks. Obviously, K1 Williams has been one of the better tacklers and run defenders in the NFL. Can Samuel Womack eclipse that role? Yeah, exactly. Most PBUs in Toledo history, I think it's 37 over the past 3 years. So definitely a guy with ball skills. It's just can he have the tackling? And I think it's a good player. It's just when you don't see a guy like him mocked a lot, at least in the entirety of the draft, you question in a way the value that you get. It's not a fifth round, it's not a sixth round pick, it's not a late seventh round pick, it's a fifth round pick that you're taking the player at. And so he could definitely project to be a good player. I actually liked him once I went back and watched him a little bit. I do like him, but we'll see. We'll see. What about you? What do you think?
So I think the 49ers didn't realize what corner they were taking, right? I think they still thought they were taking Tyson Anderson from Toledo. I'll be honest with you. Like I was very
Okay.
like taking Samuel. Whoa, all right. And I was like, that's
That's where I stumbled upon him. Tyson
yeah,
Anderson.
it's
Yeah.
because you watched Tyson Sanderson, right?
Right.
I was like, what are they doing? Like right away, I looked up Samuel Womack to see what I could find on him. Look to see if I could find film on him. I have a lot of Toledo film, so I'm gonna watch it.
Mhm.
Um, but I was like, what are they doing? This is a guy who, as I'm looking up, I don't know anything about him, right? He has literally no data on him. I'm like, whoa, no one talked about this dude. Why are they drafting? And then a guy goes, that was a player who was undraftable. And I was like, oh, it's one of those drafts. Take a running back in the third round, take a cornerback who's undraftable. It's one of those rounds. Okay. I was like, wow. So for me, I love the speed element. I love that he could play in the nickel. That's what something the 49ers need, right? So for me, I know Jamal said that he does have kind of long arms, 31-inch arms, which is huge for his size. He's only 5'9".
Exactly.
So for Samuel Womack, if he could play that nickel spot and he could compete with Demo, that's a plus. I think he's a guy who'll probably end up being on the practice squad. I really do. I think he'll be a practice squad stash and let him develop. I don't think he's going to beat out Demo for the nickel corner. I don't think he'll beat out Avery Thomas on the roster. The 49ers normally carry, what, 6 corners on the team?
Yeah, 6,
So
yeah.
they have
They've got Ward,
Ward,
Thomas,
Mosley, Thomas, Demo. Those are all locks in my opinion. That's 4 corners. Jason Verrett probably makes the roster if he's
and we
healthy.
talked about we're gonna talk about one in a minute in Tariq Castro Fields, who
And I
probably
think
makes it.
Castro Fields makes the roster over
And then
Womack, which is
we have
very
Dante
interesting
Johnson as well. So that's like 7 pretty good corners. Yeah.
because I personally think the player they take, the corner they take later is a much better corner than Womack. But then I end up seeing that one of their area scouts for Toledo was pounding the table for Samuel Womack. And I give
Right.
that, I don't know what area scout that is. I'm gonna go and I wanna find his name because he deserves a lot of credit. Because a lot of times people who are scouts, they don't get the credit for pounding the table for a guy that they actually love, right?
Essentially, yeah.
If you pound the table for someone you love, I respect it because that means you're putting your respect on the line for this dude, and you're putting your potentially kind of your scouting career on the line because if this dude in the fifth round doesn't pan out, and I understand it's the fifth round, it's a later pick, it's kind of at this point you're kind of taking players who could potentially be undrafted free agents, but you like so you take them and they potentially make you back into your roster. But
Mhm.
he's putting his reputation of a scout on the line, and I love it because usually guys like that they end up having the ability to make a roster. And like Jamal said right now, Womack's mental makeup, I hear, is really good, and that's why this
Yeah,
area scout pounded the table. Not because of his ability, which he has the ability to play, but it's the mentals. And as a cornerback, all you need is this. If you think you're the best
exactly.
player on the field as a corner, you're the best player on the field, and you no one can tell you otherwise. And that's what I like about what the 49ers did there, because the area scout says he's good. Area scout says his mentals are there. And if
Yeah,
they believe in their scouts, I think that's the best way to go about business in the fifth to seventh round. Because if we see what they did with George Kittle, they believed in their scouting and they got a guy. I'm not saying he's going to be a George Kittle, but I'm saying believe your scouting and trust your who you have in your building to lead you to the promised land. Next pick,
definitely. And I mean, real
go ahead.
quick before we go on to Zakelj, Womack, one thing I've found out in a way, and I mean, it's pretty well known. NFL boards are a little different, obviously, than media boards, right? One guy that I found out, Cam Jurgens, was actually like in consideration for the New England Patriots at 29. People view him as a third round talent, but he was in serious consideration alongside Cole Strange at 29. And yeah, it apparently was known around the NFL that both of those players were not making it out of the second round. So obviously, to the media, it might seem that this pick is an undraftable player, but to NFL boards, 49ers, even with the scout pounding the table, that was probably the cherry on top, but it might have been in league circles that Womack could have been in consideration to be drafted sometime soon, be it in the sixth round or something like that. And the 49ers just wanted to, they just realized we don't want to trade back or anything like that and select him there at 172.
And that's something that, like you said, right? That's smart when you're drafting because trust your scouting, trust who you have in the building. Because
Right.
yeah, the media is out there, they're doing their homework, they're doing all this, right? But they're not necessarily in your building talking about these players. They're not looking for what you're looking for. And if the 49ers are looking for a corner who's feisty, corner who has the speed to play special teams, a corner who like the area scout said, the mental makeup is there. That's what you go and get. Round 6, 187. We drafted a offensive lineman, Nick Zakic.
I just say Zakelj. I've struggled all weekend. I say Zakelj. I have no clue how to say it, to be honest. But yeah. And it's funny because John Lynch was talking about him too, and he kept mispronouncing his name in his own press conference as well.
I heard Kyle Shanahan got on him for being a bad announcer, which is hella funny because that's to me, it's like, oh, you're the announcer, dude. You should be getting it right out of Kyle Shanahan and him. But so this player, when I saw them pick Nick Sockage, I don't know how to say his name. I'll say Nick Zach. I don't want to
Yeah.
get his name wrong. I feel bad pronouncing his name wrong every time. Let's call him Nick. So when the Niners selected Nick, right, I was like, okay, they added offensive lineman. I went right away and I said, okay, from Fordham. I remember hearing that name somewhere, and it might have been the Senior Bowl.
Senior Bowl. Yeah.
And that's where I was like, oh, this is the guy I saw who was playing inside where I thought he could play any of the three interior positions because of the movement skills, the his feet. I like to say happy feet. He has quick feet are like this, they're like this, constantly going. And I was like, whoa, they got themselves an athletic freak inside. I was like, that's 6'6", 315 and moving like that. Okay. That's something that I would rather see the 49ers do and take upside than reaching for a corner in the fifth round. That's, in my opinion, was a value pick because offensive linemen in the later rounds, even if you get a few years out of them, you get 2 years of them on your roster as backups. That is valuable position because you're not paying that offensive lineman much, but they could come in and they could play if anything happens, if someone goes down. This guy, I think potentially can win out center position starting if Alex Mack retires. I know the 49ers got an undrafted free agent in Donovan West, which we'll talk about a little bit later, but I think Nick could win the starting center position if Alex Mack retires because he has the ability to do so. And I would love to see the 49ers allow him to compete for starting center if he's not allowed if he doesn't win the starting right guard spot because that right guard, that left guard, that's all it's all up for grabs. I think Aaron Banks won left guard. I think right guard is going to be between Burford and Dayton Moore. I think Nick could possibly be the starting center with the 49ers this year. Talk to me about what you saw from him and what was your analysis on him.
And it's interesting you say that because to me personally, when I compared Burford and Zakelj, I thought, or Nick Zach, I thought Zach was the more pro ready player, in my opinion. I thought Burford was the better, like, overall pick, or not necessarily for value. I thought Burford had the higher potential, but I thought Zach at least was the better pro ready player. And I had it questioned a bit at the beginning of the Senior Bowl. He struggles a bit when but it was understandable. First time he's playing interior offensive lineman. He was a tackle, obviously, at Fordham. He's not necessarily he is a better guard. He said it himself. He's going to play guard in the NFL, but he was a tackle at Fordham because obviously they don't have as many big guys. So you have the biggest guy playing at left tackle. So when you see him move to guard at the beginning of the Senior Bowl, yeah, he struggles. But at the end of the week, Adam Peters himself mentioned it. Adam Peters was actually one of the guys who was the main guy around this pick. And he mentioned it himself. He said Zach essentially played better as the Senior Bowl came along, showing his quick ability to kind of improve at a position he's never played before at the guard position at the Senior Bowl, and played well in the Senior Bowl game itself at guard. Also, it was interesting that I saw that the 49ers have actually been on his radar for 4 years. Nick Zach was actually a guy when they were back at Fordham scouting another guy 4 years ago. Zach popped up on the radar as the best player in a way in the program, despite being a freshman, because of how big and how strong and how athletic he was. And he's been on the radar for 4 years. I like the pick because, yeah, it's interior help. And seeing John Lynch even say that he could compete at center, I think that's a very interesting proposition because you have a guy who's kind of relatively inexperienced at the interior positions, but has the mental work to kind of pick it up quick. And I think that's important for the 49ers. And I think that his build, 6'6", 315, is a little more pro-ready size-wise. And he also has the agility. He was one of the best testers at the Combine. And in some scouts' eyes, second best behind Cole Strange, had I think a 9.85 or 9.74 RAS score. When you look at it, all the stats pop off the charts. And so that's why I'm excited about this pick. You have a guy who's going to be a seamless scheme fit, a guy who I think is a little more pro-ready than their other offensive linemen, and he could compete at the biggest hold the 49ers have currently because we don't know about Alex Mack, and that's at center.
So the next pick the 49ers ended up taking. So Jamal ended up, before we get there, Jamal says Womack and O'Neal, who is an undrafted free agent, are two guys who believe in themselves more than anyone, which I agree. Those guys have they have very high confidence. The only thing is their play has to meet the confidence, right? So
right.
Like you have to meet that confidence level in your play to make it in the NFL. So the 49ers select Kalia Davis out of UCF. I thought this pick was an amazing pick.
Yeah.
Right away when I saw that, I said, whoa. I said, that was a guy I thought if he was healthy at UCF, he could have definitely gone in the third round because he is a very, very explosive, athletic defensive tackle. He is going to make fans very happy. So if fans like DJ Jones, who I thought DJ Jones was good, but not as good as a $10 million contract, that's something that 49ers fans were like, oh, I would pay it. This guy is better than DJ Jones coming out. DJ Jones was solid. Okay. DJ Jones was solid coming out. This guy is better than DJ Jones coming out. Now, can he reach that potential because he's coming off that ACL injury? I think he can. He's 5 months removed. He should be ready to go by camp. And I think fans are going to love him in the run game. This dude in the run game is so damn good. He could shed blocks real quick. That first step to get to the running back in the backfield is there. He brings upside of the pass rusher. He's not just a run stuffer. He is also a pass rusher when he is full go. I think this pick was arguably the best pick in the 6th round because where he should have gone, if fully healthy, in my opinion, would have been high. 3rd round. The lowest he should have gone was in the 4th round. They got him 2 rounds later than he would have gone if he was fully healthy, in my opinion. And that is what I call valuing where you are picking in the NFL draft. The 49ers got a steal in Kalia Davis at 6'1", 300 pounds, and he carries his weight like a bowling ball. When you look at Kalia Davis, you literally see a bowling ball.
Yeah, I love the pick as well. I thought this guy, like you said, was a 3rd or 4th round talent. He only drops because he tore his ACL. He was a phenomenal player at UCF. Like you said, the comp is DJ Jones, and the 49ers lost him. A lot of fans were upset that they lost him at that $10 million price. And now you have a guy who has the potential to be your DJ Jones for the future. And surprisingly enough, the 49ers also had DJ Jones, I believe, in the 6th or the 5th round. I think it was the 6th round in the year that he was drafted. And so it's a very, very similar replacement. And Kalia Davis, like you said, explosive, and he should not move like he moves for a 300-pound guy. Very similar to how DJ Jones moves for a 300-pound guy. So you like the upside of an interior run defender in a way, who could even potentially have some pass rushing upside later on. But the reason that I like it, it's 2 reasons. Well, one, it fits the 49ers MO in multiple ways. First of all, he's a guy with a torn ACL, 49ers MO. Second of all, I think that this is no, I just had to put that in there. But mainly, this guy, he has the athletic ability where you can slot him not only in the 1 tech as a nose tackle, but you can also slot him in the 3 tech and have multiple guys. Like you have a Hassan Ridgeway who you signed, and you can play similar 2 different players like that at positions, because in a way the 49ers are playing positionless football along that defensive line. They move guys everywhere. And also the 49ers are likely going to place him on the NFI list, or they're going to place him on the PUP list, physically unable to play list. And for me, that's important. Why? Because now you're going to be able to carry an extra defensive lineman on the roster for the start of the season, which means that you're going to have a little more of a healthy lineup, rotate more guys in, and preserve bodies at the beginning of the season until Kalia Davis is ready to come back fully healthy and in the scope of things for the 49ers. And I think that that's really, really helpful for the 49ers, because you get an extra body in a year or after a couple of years where the 49ers have had injury concerns at the position. Last year was Mo Hurst. The year before it was the entire defensive line. So I think that it's important to save an extra roster spot. And I know it's not necessarily the reason why they're doing this pick, but to get a 3rd or a 4th round player and get to carry another defensive lineman on the roster, I think that's a win-win for me.
Absolutely win. When I watched Kalia Davis, I 100% was like, wow, this dude, if he's healthy, he's definitely going to be going early. But since he's not healthy and the ACL injury concern, he'll go a little bit later. But then the Niners double up and get another good player in the 6th round who, like I said earlier, I would have taken, in my opinion, just because I know Samuel Womack would have been there at 221, I would have taken Tariq Castro Fields in the 5th round. And when I see Tariq Castro Fields, this is an athletic freak, right? This dude
Right.
is so damn athletic. I believe he ran in the 4.3s at the combine.
Mhm.
He
I
had
think it
a
was
97.
4.38 if I'm not mistaken. Yeah.
What was that?
4.38 if I'm not mistaken. Yeah.
I believe it was
Fast.
4.38, 4.39. That's where I remember him running.
Yeah.
When I watched his tape, I saw a corner who he lacks the fundamentals, but he has all the ability to be a legit starting corner in the NFL. I think he
Mhm.
can play inside and outside, but where I think he best slots in the NFL is actually safety. I think he could be a hell of a
Ooh.
if he could play safety in the NFL, I think he is the best version if he's in the safety, because he has the speed, the range to cover ground. He's quick out of breaks, right? So that is very high when you're quick out of breaks, and he doesn't necessarily shadow well. He takes too long to turn and run when he's covering these receivers, and that's because probably the speed. He just knows he's so fast that when he turns and runs, he could be a step behind the receiver, and he has that speed to catch up and make that gap small. But I think the 49ers should try to convert him to a safety. Him as strong safety would be a hell of a safety pairing, because the 49ers don't really have strong safety, free safety anymore. It's literally 2 safeties on the field that they interchange. You could be strong safety in the down in the box. The next thing you know, you're deep third. So 49ers need athletic guys at the safety position. And I think transitioning to Tariq Castro Fields to safety would be the best thing for Fields as well as the 49ers. And it was funny because when I read that they drafted Tariq Castro Fields, initially I read Fidel Castro. Just like the history in my brain was like, oh, Niners got Fidel Castro, and I was like, dude, what the hell am I thinking? I was like, oh, okay, Tariq Castro Fields. Okay, I know exactly what you're talking about, but my brain went to Castro Fields, which is hilarious. So, what
Yeah,
are
and I
your
think
thoughts on getting him in the 6th round? Because I know a lot of people had
I
him a lot higher.
I did too, and I thought this was great value in a way. I think that Tariq Castro Fields, like you said, he's the embodiment of a cornerback, or not cornerback, but he's the embodiment of a defensive back. 6'1", 200, good speeds, good size, the traits that you need. He's got good press man skills. He does need refinement though, right, as a corner. And it's so interesting that you say that you think he profiles best as a safety, because the second that he got drafted, I was hosting a space on Twitter that day, and I actually said the exact same thing. I honestly thought the 49ers should transition him to safety, and I had a little bit of just thinking about it just a little bit after the pick. I had a little bit of a pushback on it. And the reason was his tackling. I don't think his tackling is really that good. I think it's actually one of the weaker parts of his game. And so I wonder, would he be able to make an impact immediately at safety if his tackling really isn't to par to where the 49ers would prefer their safeties to be? But if he's a pure coverage safety, I would like it, because I think that's a way for him to utilize his speed best, where he's not necessarily out of control. And it's also a way to help him refine the skills that he might need to potentially transition to corner at like a year or two down the line for the 49ers. And so I do like the pick. It adds obviously depth. And like you said, I would have liked this pick in the 5th round as well. One of the more valuable picks. And for me, on day 3, these were the 2 best picks, Kalia Davis and Tariq Castro Fields. On day 3, potentially even the best in the draft in terms of value, although of course Drake Jackson was there. So I liked it. I do think that he does profile a little better at safety. It's just, can he improve the tackling? That's the one concern that I had after thinking about it a little bit. But I like the comp for sure.
So it's funny that you say best value, right? Because that's something I've been saying, like value, 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 where you pick, right? So the 49ers actually got a very value pick, right? So Daniel Jeremiah put out a top value picks for each round, right?
Okay.
You know where the best value pick for the 6th round was? It was actually Tariq Castro Fields. Niners selected
Okay.
him at 221 in the top 150 ranking. He was actually ranked at 118 on Daniel Jeremiah's board. So that's something for a lot of people to be excited about, because this is a guy that a lot of these scouts, a lot of these big time analysts and big time people that are talking, they're saying this dude is one of the top 100. Obviously, he said the 118, so he's obviously a top 120 prospect in this draft class, right?
Right.
So the 49ers got a late round potential steal in this draft class. I personally think if they could get him to move to safety, that would be a steal, because the 49ers don't have a starting safety that we could count on yet, right? And like Jamal said, so Jamal goes, yep, Rohan, I remember you saying that. Hips are a little tight, but his athletic speed has allowed him to compensate for that. Will be tough to do that at the NFL level. It absolutely will be hard to do at the NFL level, especially when you have tight hips in the NFL at corner. I think it's easier to have tight hips at safety than at corner, because you allow a lot more of freedom to do stuff, right? You're allowed to backpedal like he likes to backpedal and then just cut. Like that's what he lives on. And I think for the 49ers to convert him to safety should be what they try to do in camp and see how he works there. Going to the last pick in the entire NFL draft, Mr. Irrelevant. So the 49ers select a quarterback. And a lot of people right away were like, why are they taking a quarterback? Like, what are they doing? Like, they have Trey Lance, they have Jimmy Garoppolo, they have Nate Sudfeld. Why are they taking a quarterback? Well, Brock Purdy is actually a pretty damn good quarterback. He is, in my opinion, a quarterback that should have been selected fifth to sixth round, because he has that potential to be a very high IQ backup quarterback. And in the NFL, you need one of those. Now, Kyle Shanahan said it best. He is Nick Mullins. Nick Mullins with a lot stronger damn arm. Um, right away, my dad texted me, why a quarterback? And I had to say, like, it's backup reasons, practice squad backup reasons. You want to have an extra arm in camp. Instead of trying to sign Brock Purdy as an undrafted free agent, you draft him in the 7th round, so you don't have to try to sign him as an undrafted free agent, where another team throws more guaranteed money at him. You get him at that last spot where you're for sure going to have him in camp, right? Do I think he beats out Nate Sudfeld? No, I don't, because Nate Sudfeld has a
2
understanding of the
million.
offense already.
Yeah.
But I would rather have Brock Purdy as my backup quarterback than Nate Sudfeld. But the big thing I'm going to push back on what I just said, right? I also don't want that because the 49ers have a young quarterback in Trey Lance, where you
Right.
need that veteran presence in Nate Sudfeld, who's been around the league for a couple years now. He was the Eagles for a couple years, about 4 years, came with us for a year. So that's something the Niners need, right? They need that veteran presence with Trey Lance. But I do like Brock Purdy moving forward as the backup quarterback the 49ers choose. So
Yeah, and I mean I agree. And I'm gonna be totally honest here. I was with the group that you said about the people questioning it. The fan got out of me when the pick was announced. I was like, God, another quarterback here. And then 5 minutes later, I was like, okay, let me think about it. Let me understand why the 49ers would do this. And it just clicked. Brock Purdy, like you said, I thought he was a good quarterback for the seventh round. In terms of value, like going BPA, I thought that was a good pick. Brock Purdy, like you said, could have been selected in the fifth, sixth round. Pretty solid quarterback. And to me, he's not anything special, but he's a guy that can be reliable in a way. He had a 70.7 completion percentage in his senior season. He can hit those throws between the numbers, and the 49ers know a quarterback and have played in a system that can adapt to that if they need to do that. I think that that's his specialty, not necessarily a ton of arm talent, but also plays very well in a play action system, and the 49ers would utilize that if he ever got on the field for them. And so for me, what this pick was is the 49ers can get that quarterback number 3 like they had last year in Sudfeld, in Brock Purdy, who they can probably stash away on the practice squad for a year, have him seasoned, have him develop, learn the system, and then take over next year because Sudfeld's on a 1-year deal. I like the pick. And I think that the 49ers also did this. They alluded to this in their press conference post-draft, that he would have been their number 1 free agent in the undrafted free agent market. However, with those guys, the reason that I've been stressing to fans recently about the quarterback selection is, look, you don't know if you're going to get an undrafted free agent. They might want some more guaranteed money. They might get it elsewhere. And obviously, I mean, with undrafted free agents, it's a lot different. But we also know the 49ers have they have contract issues at times. We've seen it this past offseason. And so, yeah, you don't know if you're going to get the guy. So for me, I thought they should have drafted a guy at 262 that they knew that they weren't going to get an undrafted free agency that was on their board. I think Brock Purdy probably fit that fit that to a T. And I like the selection at 262 because guess what? Who do you get in undrafted free agency? Donovan West, Jason Poe, guys like Jeremiah Gemmell, the linebacker out of UNC, and other players as well. So I liked it. I thought it was fine value as well.
So you started going into these undrafted free agents, right? So I know you have obligations to go on live with Larry Kruger. So let's do a quick. Who do you think is the best undrafted free agent signings for the 49ers, and why so? And what are the chances of actually making the roster? Because I know a lot of people are saying the 49ers could potentially have a safety out of that class, have a center out of that class of undrafted free agents. What do you think of the best undrafted free agent signing for the 49ers?
I think it's Donovan West, most pro ready, and the 49ers do have a need center. Alex Mack could retire, and Donovan West definitely could push to start day one. The other two guys that I just mentioned were my top 3. I said West, Mercer, and then Jeremiah Gemmell, the UNC linebacker. And so, yeah, those were my best 3, and I think they were the best by far. For you, what do you think?
I think I would agree. Donovan West is easily the best undrafted free agent the 49ers got, right? But I'm not gonna. There's everyone keeps saying like, oh, the 49ers got Leano O'Neal. Oh, he's gonna make the roster. He's gonna be the starting safety. Like I've seen a lot of that on the timeline, and I'm just like, guys, like let's sit here and think about something, right? Like, do you guys realize how much money the 49ers guaranteed this guy? Like they literally guaranteed him 50,000. Like it was
Nothing.
almost like fifty
Yeah.
thousand dollars, right?
Oh, that's
So,
my 4th guy that Maul said. But go ahead. Yeah.
so a lot of people are saying like, oh, this dude's gonna make the roster. He's gonna be the starting safety. I actually like the other safeties they brought in more than O'Neal. Like
Mm-hmm.
O'Neal, I prefer Quantrez Knight from UCLA
Mm-hmm.
more than O'Neal. At least he's athletic and has the athletic ability to provide more than what O'Neal does. And then we go to about Taylor Hawkins from San Diego State, another
Yeah.
athletic guy who could potentially be a better player than O'Neal. Now, what O'Neal provides is the ability to tackle inside the box and be that inside the box guy, but I don't trust him deep third by himself on an island, right? That's not who he is, and that's not who he'll ever be. He plays slow. He's tight-hipped, tighter hip than you want on a safety, but he plays slow. He plays with what his 40 time is, probably a little bit slower than that. And I saw him on the timeline, right? So it made me mad, and I get he's a 49er, and if 49er fans want to do whatever you want with this, right? Because I saw him on the timeline talking smack to a guy on the 49ers Twitter world. Tony, I don't know how to say his last name. I'll bring it up.
Tony Rangini.
Yeah, Tony Regini, right? He's talking all this smack to Tony Regini on the timeline, like, oh, you don't know who I am. I'm legit. I love the confidence. Absolutely love the confidence. But when your highlight is getting ran over by a third round running back who the 49ers fan base was questioning you being drafted, confidence is a key, but confidence needs to be backed up, right? And for me, it's funny because he was talking all this shit to Tony, like, I right away I text Tony, I was like, hey man, like, if I was you're a much better dude than I am, because I would have been firing at him, tagging him like, hey, you see this clip? I would have been tagging him in that Davis clip, right? I understand he's a Niner now. I hope he makes the roster. I hope he does. All these guys who go undrafted, all these guys who go drafted, I hope they have great careers, right? And the reason
Right.
is because they made their dreams come true. They made they all that hard work. They make their dreams come true. They made it to the NFL, undrafted, drafted or not. But like you said, I think Donovan West has the most upside in this undrafted free agent class. And I think the 49ers potentially got a backup center, at least a backup center in Donovan West. I'm intrigued to go watch tight end Garrett Watson from North Carolina.
Oh yeah.
The reason is it's the size. 6'4", 245. I'm intrigued by the size. I have not watched him, but I'm intrigued. Hey man, I just speak my mind, man. Like, you can't be on the timeline talking all this smack, right, to Tony, and then you're getting like saying like, oh, throwing SEC PFF numbers at him, like I'm the best in the SEC, and then bro, like you run a 4.8, like bro, you're slower than offensive linemen, bro, like. And you're playing safety, my guy. Like, to me, it's okay. That's cool. Like, you're a legit safety in college. I think you're a good college safety. But in the NFL, I don't think he's going to be that good if he makes a team. Kudos to him. But don't come out the timeline speaking at 49er fans, right? Disrespectfully. And then the running back the 49ers drafted straight trucked you, and you watch his film and it's not that great. So, like, don't come at 49er fans, because we actually do watch our film. We actually do like study stuff. So don't come at us. If you're gonna step at a Niner fan, make sure you come step in the right way, because best believe we're gonna fire shots back. And that's one thing that if it was Jamal or anyone else, I'd be saying the same thing to back them up. If it was anyone on the timeline, I would back them up the same way, because don't come stepping at 49er fans if you ain't stepping the right way.
And Marco, I want to say one thing for you, because you said the good parts about Leon O'Neal. He's good he's instinctual, good tackler, probably plays in the box. And I was talking with a good friend of mine, Lethal, on 49ers Twitter, and he suggested something that I really liked, and I was actually thinking of myself. For Leon O'Neal, could he be the next safety to linebacker convert for the 49ers? They had Marcel Harris, who's obviously much quicker, but I think that might suit him a little better. You have him play linebacker on the practice squad for a year, get him acclimated to the position. And then I think that might be suited better for a guy of his speed, because I don't necessarily think his range is as bad as his speed indicates, especially if you're in a limited role like a linebacker as compared to having bigger range as a safety. I think that he could be a better player as a linebacker. What are your thoughts on that before we end today?
So I don't like it, because at least Marcel Harris is capable of being a coverage linebacker, right? Like, he has the ability to like match up with tight ends and run with them. Marcel Harris, even though he coming out of college, he was coming off an injury, and he's still like that. The speed and that he had is still much better than Leon
Yeah,
O'Neal.
it's good speed for sure.
So like he still had that speed coming out of college. So it's like, for me, I don't like it because he's a smaller guy. He's only 6. I believe he's 6. Leon O'Neal's what, 6'1", 205, 200 at the most.
Yeah,
205.
so he's definitely small for the position. Definitely, yeah.
Like, I would prefer to see him like at that safety role in the box. I guess more so if you're going to play him at safety, he has to be in the box. Don't rely on him in coverage. Just have him be a true strong safety. And but then like at that point, it kind of handcuffs what so he's actually 6'1", 210. So he has a bigger frame than I thought. But if you kind of handcuff D'Amico Ryans in a sense because D'Amico Ryans likes to have his safeties be very interchangeable. For example, there's times that Jimmy Ward is looks like he's deep free safety, and last year Marcel Jaquaski Tart was lined up a strong safety in the box, and then next thing you know, as soon as the snap's made, you see Jaquaski Tart sprinting and Jimmy Ward coming up and playing inside the box. So for me, I think the Niners want to have these athletes at safety, right? And when you look at the guy that they brought in, who, in my opinion, is kind of plays that role, is Quantrez Knight. He plays that role where he could play anywhere in the backfield at safety. And same thing with Taylor Hawkins. He has the ability to play in the nickel. He has the ability to play deep safety. So I think those are two better undrafted free agent signings at safety than Leon O'Neal. And I get it. Fans should be excited. You really should be excited for Leon O'Neal because a lot of people had him actually getting drafted fairly higher than
Right.
not getting drafted. People had him actually 4th round, 5th round as a safety, 6th round as a safety. So you're getting a guy who should have been drafted much higher than not drafted. So that is a plus. Um, anything else you want to say before you head out? Because I know you got to be with Larry Kruger.
I'm good. Yeah, we covered the draft. Thank you guys, everybody, for tuning in. First time we've gone live since the draft, so great content, and obviously Jamal and everyone who was in the chat. Thank you guys so much. We stay tuned. We will probably go live again this week, talking about some next steps for the 49ers. But Mark, you got anything else to say?
No, just make sure you guys head to that YouTube channel. You go to 49ers Red Zone Podcast on YouTube, any listening platform. Make sure you like and subscribe on YouTube. You give us a good rating on your favorite platform on audio version, whether that's Apple Podcast, Spotify, whatever the case may be. Jamal in the comments is saying, "Have y'all spoke about Jason Verrett yet?"
Ooh,
No, we are going to save that for the
next
next
topic.
episode because we were going to talk a
We
little
got
bit
it.
about players who should make the team next episode. So make sure you're tuned in. Hit that bell so you know when we go live. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button.